Great. No worries. Now here's the fun part.
Okay, good.
And just feel relaxed. I'm not gonna bite you or anything like that. If you now, are you comfortable with me in the coat?
Sure. Yeah,
If you want me to take it off, I'm fine. You sure about that? Okay.
fine.
Okay. Yesterday, the Prime Minister advisor for Israel was here in Singapore, and I did an interview. And there was one request. They told me, I don't want you to wear a coat, and I'm not going to wear a coat. There's no coats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I understand. For us, we kind of wear T-shirts or shirts.
That's
People
nice. I like
recognize
that.
them when we're doing our book signings. So people recognize
you like that,
us.
Colton? Okay.
But other than that, we usually ask people, how do you dress, and then we'll just kind of match. So.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Robin Stienberg. Welcome to the National Quiz Choice Online News, and so Save Hyatt for all the Hyatt fans around the world traveling and staying at the Hyatt hotels. Welcome. And here I have two special guests here at the show, Todd Burpo and his son Colton Burpo, who have written one of the best-selling books on New York Times, Heaven is for Real. And today we're going to answer some of the most important questions in life. Is heaven for real? Now, Todd, welcome to my show, and
Thank you,
Colton, it's so nice to see you here in Southeast Asia, or Asia you may call it, and I believe this is your first time.
Very first time.
Oh. And let me ask the son first, that is, Colton, how do you feel about Asia? This is the first time traveling, right, as a kid?
Out of country, yes. Well, I think Asia, it is a little bit close to the American civilization.
Wow.
And where we are, we can actually speak English, both of us, so we don't have that language barrier.
Okay. So you hope to learn Mandarin as well, I suppose?
A little bit.
Oh, okay. Very nice, very nice. And Todd, what's your perspective of Asia now? And this is the first time you're traveling.
Singapore, when we met, we come from a rural farming community, 2,000 people in our town. So the big skyscrapers, buildings are all different from where we live. But my most important impression of Singapore is the people. You know, it's not buildings that really make a place, it's the people that make a place. And the people are so courteous, they're polite, they're
really
easy to talk to. I've been very impressed, very impressed.
Well, thank you for the compliments for Asia. And please do not forget to get hold of your copy, Heaven is for Real by Todd Burpo and with Lynn Vincent, and also it's actually the account of their son. It's also available here in Southeast Asia, and do place your order. If you can't find it at Campus Crusade Mass Media as well. And now for the questions. Todd, let me start with you first before I go to the million-dollar question to your son. How did you discover that your son was telling the truth about heaven and his experience? Is there any criteria that you look for that you have taken him seriously at that moment? I mean, because many fathers and parents, in Asia especially, and they feel the same way as the West, that kids normally lie and sometimes they make up stories or, and etc. But you as a father and your wife as well, you actually give very special attention. Could you tell us?
Well, I think there was probably 4 things that Colton did that I couldn't dismiss. First of all, he was only 4 years old when he started telling me. I think as parents, it's a whole lot harder to know if your 14-year-old's telling the truth, but a 4-year-old, we all know when they're being honest or making things up. But when he could tell me where I was and where his mom was and what we were doing while he was in surgery, he couldn't have made that up and been right, but he was right. Then he talks to me about meeting his unborn sister. We had never told him, we had never told our 3-year-old that we had lost a baby in his mother's tummy. How do you tell a child that without scaring them? And then he tells us about his mom losing a baby and how he met his sister in heaven, and we knew that didn't come from us. My granddad, I write about this in the book, was killed in a car accident before I turned 7.
That's right.
And he spends a lot of time with Grandpa in heaven and told me how I spent time with him as a kid. And he recognizes a picture of Pop taken back in the 1940s he had never seen. I had no earthly explanation except his explanation was I met him in heaven. It was the only thing that made sense. And then the other thing for me, because I'm a pastor, I have obviously studied the Bible many times. And when my son would tell me things that Jesus said to him that he taught in Scripture or things in Revelations that I knew he never read and he had never been taught, I knew that these stories were lining up, and the only explanation was he had to have met the Jesus that said the same things in the Bible.
And if you hadn't chosen not to listen to him at that point of time, supposedly, if you had chosen to say to yourself, that's not true and you're not taking it seriously, what would you have done if you decide not to take him seriously?
Well, I don't know. I think for me, I struggled with it. I wasn't ready to talk to my 4-year-old about heaven. I wasn't prepared for it. I knew that when we left the hospital, I had a nurse pull me aside and say, Mr. Burkle, we don't know why your son's better. And she told me, I don't know if I believe in God, but I know this is a miracle. We don't know why your son is better. So when we left the hospital, even the nurses told us we had a miracle, but I didn't understand how big the miracle was until he started telling us things about heaven. I think for us, we had to go through a process of questioning and asking, but Colton is our child that's very serious. He's my youngest son, Colby's kind of the jokester, and he's the comedian, but not Colton. And so when we knew he was telling us stuff, his whole personality is to not make things up. And so we knew that he was telling us something he really believed in.
Now let me point one question to Colton right now. Colton, welcome to my show, and tell me, what is heaven like? I mean, I know that you said this many times, but is heaven, is it truly described as what the Bible says? Is there streets of gold, there were animals, or did you saw a dog there? What's it like?
Well, heaven is pretty much like earth a lot. And yes, the Bible is right when it describes heaven, but it's pretty much a perfect version of earth. No sickness, no wheelchairs, no glasses.
Wow. And in your book, you said people were as young as probably yourself and myself. You don't see any old people there. Is that true?
No, there are no old people. The
Wow.
oldest people is pretty much from your late 20s to early 30s because you stay in your prime.
Amazing. Wow. Now, let me come back to that question to your dad and Mr. Todd. Describing what your son has said, and at the same time, oh yes, before that, you saw animals in heaven, right?
Yes.
Did you see any dogs there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now that confirms it, because my wife loves dogs.
Yes. A lot of people do.
And you know what, folks, everybody tells me, and my wife tells me that would dogs go to heaven? Now I think you have heard the answer right now, and there's nothing more to say. This is the confirmation. So, pray for your dog. Mr. Todd, sorry if I disrespect you. I know you're a pastor, but what is it like going through the moments with your son's condition? I know it was pretty serious in the hospital, and and what were your thoughts?
I was scared. I was mad at God. We had a very hard year. I had a cancer scare. I broke my leg. I was trying to have to learn to walk again. I was in a cast for so long. And then when I just about lost my son, I felt God had maybe turned his eye from me. I was upset. I think a lot of people say, well, you're a pastor, you should have had more faith. But to be honest, I was really hurting. And I was screaming out to God in that room, God, I need you now. I was scared because I think as a dad, I don't care if you're a pastor or you're not, we all love our children. And I can tell you, when I thought I was going to lose my son, I've never been more scared or felt more helpless in my life than at that moment. And I think we, in life too, when we run to those hard things, we want to run. I wanted to run out of that situation, but the thing was I couldn't, so do I run away from God or run to God? And I ran to God just pleading, God, I need you now. And God really provided a miracle for us.
Amazing. Now, come back to Colton. I have another question. Did Jesus and God say anything to you to tell us before you come, before you come back. Did he say anything?
Well, before I came back, Jesus gave me a message from my dad that Jesus really loves the children.
Wow. And that's all? Is that all for?
That was the only message that I had to give.
Oh wow. And how about God? I mean, in your book I read that you saw God, and He's huge. Wow. Did God say anything when you first saw Him? What was He doing?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, but what was God doing when you first saw Him?
Well, when I first saw him, it was in the throne room of God, and he was sitting in his throne.
Wow. Were there a lot of activity going on? Was there singing? Was there worship? They are?
Yeah.
Amazing. And what kind of music were they playing?
Well, it's kind of hard to answer that question because you hear music all the time, and you can make sense of it.
Amazing. Wow, I can't wait to get there. And come back to Todd, the experience that your son been through in seeing God and Christ himself.
Mm-hmm.
I need to ask you, do you have any fears that the public may question your son's experience, because you create a memoir out of it, which is Heaven is for Real.
Yes.
And did you encounter any fear from the public, being questionable?
Yes.
And what actually inspired you to write Heaven is for Real?
Yeah.
What really inspired you? What moved you to do that?
Well, we live in a town of 2,000 people, and I think people from small towns kind of understand the small town dynamic. Colton has been sharing his story since he came back from the hospital, 4 years old. Everyone in town can talk to Colton, sees Colton, can question Colton. And we would share our story like at funerals when people were hurting, just how much God loved them and what heaven was like. And people were like, you need to write this down. More people need to know this. And eventually over time, God brought the publishing world to us. I didn't seek them out. I prayed, I said, God, if you want me to write, I've never written anything before. I didn't know if I should be an author or even try to be. I said, you're going to have to prove it to me and let them find me. And my agent discovered the story and called me. I remember when he called me, God was like talking in one ear and my agent's in the other, and God's like, you gave me a promise. Now are you going to keep it? I want you to write this book. And that's how we started writing the book.
So it's not a commercial decision then. It's just from your heart.
It was God, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. And he proved to me he wanted me to do it.
And to Colton, how do you feel about having a book written about your experience? Did your dad tell you about it, and did you actually like the idea?
Well, I haven't come to a feeling about having a book written about me, but I am kind of glad that our story is out there because tongue twister, but because it has helped a lot of people.
That's good. Very nice. Wow. And I'd like to ask this important question to you, and one of our readers wrote in and asked and said, did your son agree to do this even though he was a minor and not able to make decisions on his own?
We talked to him about it, and we told him what God was leading to us to do, and he agreed that this was important to him too. Matter of fact, the children's book, he wrote that pretty much himself. He really wanted to tell kids about heaven. And so when you look at the adult book, I think the children's book, Colton really wanted to tell his story his way too when he wrote that.
Oh yeah. Colton, could you pick up that book from there to show it? Yeah,
Sure.
That's right. And I want to show everyone what Colton did with his book. And this is the book called Heaven is for Real for Kids. And look at this. Powerful, colorful message. Amazing. Thank you, Colton. And please get hold of this book for your kids. If you can't get hold of the adult version, it's quite handy. But for your kids, please get hold of this book, Heaven is for Real for Kids, by Colton himself.
Yes.
And and Colton, really, thank you for producing a public like that, and And so, back to Todd, how does America perceive your son's experience so far? What lessons have you learned since the publication has been released? You've been traveling and all that. Were there conflicts that you faced and overcome, and how has it the impact for others to believe in your faith?
I think one of the things we've had to do is we travel, but then we go home. We spend a lot of time trying to still do life. We live in the same town, doing the same things. We liked our life before we wrote the book, so we still live in Imperial most of the time. But I think with people, we've been amazed at how many people the book has helped, especially men. I think my wife and I, the miscarriage was a really deep hurt, and we knew that when we talked about Colton meeting his sister in heaven, a lot of ladies would find peace, but we have been amazed by how many men have written to us that have lost children, and how Colton's testimony of meeting his sister has helped them tremendously. And so we have critics that attack us, but I think you can go to Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. These are not Christian chat rooms. And like Barnes & Noble's getting close to 8,000 reviews on Heaven is For Real. Incredible number. And for every attack, 1-star rating, there's like 10 5-star ratings of people saying thank you. So what we do is we really have to focus on the people that our story is helping, and we just choose to look at them and focus on them. And we're so very grateful that it has helped so many. But I think the other thing that we've learned is when you pray, God, if you can use me, I'll let you use me. You might be amazed what God might use you for.
Amazing. And speaking about amazing, let me come back to your son right now. And I tell you, this is going to be a $1 million question that everybody's going to hear. Colton, is Jesus real?
Yes.
I mean, you've seen him, so Jesus is real. Wow. Folks, you got his answer now. And what does he look like? I mean, you said that at one time in your book that he has blue eyes. What else?
Well, yes, he does have blue eyes, but he has brown hair, he has a beard, he has a smile brighter than any that I've ever seen, and his eyes, you just get stuck on them because they're just hard to describe.
Amazing. So when you first met him, what is it like when you first realized that he's Jesus Christ?
Well, actually, I first met him in the hospital room.
Really? Wow. Which part of the hospital? Was it by your bedside or?
Yes, it was by my bedside. Right when I first saw everything, I could look down, see my body, see my parents in different rooms. And I was sitting on Jesus' lap.
Oh, okay. And what did he do next? Was he the one that took you to heaven?
No, Jesus had some angels carry me to heaven.
Wow, amazing. And what do the angels look like?
Well, the angels, they pretty much look like people, but they are a little bit taller, and they have special jobs assigned by them from God.
Amazing. Now about Jesus, other than what he looks like, is there something special about him that caused you to believe that he's a special God?
You don't have to pretty much do that because he just radiates it.
Wow.
He's so special and powerful that he just radiates kindness.
Wow. Is it just from within and the feelings that you saw him?
I really don't know the answer to that question.
Wow. It is a mystery then.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Folks, Jesus is great and it's a mystery. So I'm glad you answered that question, that Jesus is real. Wow. Now, and when you grow up to be like your dad, what would you like to be? When you are as old as your dad, what would you like to be?
Well, I would like to be a musician.
Really? Wow. Why?
because apparently I have a talent for music. Because I play the piano, trumpet, and I do sing.
Okay. Are you going to play music as well as the one you saw in heaven?
Maybe.
That'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. And you know, and what would you like to tell all the people in the world, right here at the National Prince Choice Save Hyatt, now that you've been to heaven? What is there one word for all the kids and everyone in the world?
Well, one thing is that heaven is real and you're gonna like it. And that's pretty much the main thing about it.
And Jesus is real as well.
Yes.
Wow. Now that is a well said. And Todd, before we end the show, what's next for you and your family? Is there any plans, you know, in making a movie?
There is.
Oh, there is. Oh,
There
wow.
is, yes.
Making a movie or a documentary or something like that.
Yeah, one of the next kind of steps that God's led us to is Sony Pictures, Columbia Pictures, is working on making a movie based on Heaven is for Real. And I think God really spoke to us that, you know, Colton's testimony and a child's view of heaven is helping so many people. God wants more people to hear that testimony. And how many more people, I don't know, maybe in Asia, go to movie theaters and read books? I know in the United States, many more people go to a movie theater than read. And
Yeah.
so what an opportunity for God to use Colton's memories to tell him that he loves them, that my son Jesus loves them, and this is what heaven's like, and I want you to bring you to my house, and you know, and I think movie 2014 is when they're hoping to have the movie released.
And speaking about the movie, Colton, are you going to plan to write your first soundtrack for your movie? You're a musician anyway, so
Don't know if you're ready for that.
you never know. You never know. You probably could find a hidden talent somewhere. I pray to God that you will find a song or a piece of music that could contribute to the world. And once again, Mr. Todd
Yes.
and Colton Burpo, thank you for joining me here at the National Critics' Choice. And thank you for joining me here at Save Hyatt. I'm Robin Stienberg. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Robert. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This whole is done, and I have